So good morning everybody and welcome to this, the 10th edition.
The exact same 5 slides I used to kick off a conference in October of 2019, just a few months before COVID. Looking back on it now, it seems quite strange and quite eerie, right, to think about using these slides. At the time, what I couldn't imagine, what we couldn't imagine, is that we were months away from closing down a global network, a global fitness industry of gyms and studios. We couldn't imagine that we would be deemed as non-essential, right? We couldn't imagine that we might lose loved ones over the coming months, especially those who had underlying health conditions. My mom was one of them. We couldn't imagine how this would reshape usage patterns in markets with hybrid and remote work. We're still feeling that effect today. And we couldn't imagine just this hybrid, omni-channel, virtual, right? I think it's tough to imagine exactly how this is going to shape our industry in the years ahead, right? But I was not there that day to talk about COVID. I'm not that smart, I couldn't predict it. I wasn't even there to talk about a fast-moving virus. I was there to talk about a slow-moving virus, one that didn't play out over 30 days, one that has played out over 30 years. We took them out of school. We didn't allow them to play with friends. They were essentially quarantined. I mean, we were taking home groceries, wiping them down before we gave them. So imagine wiping down a can of Coke or a bag of Doritos and giving it to them, not even thinking that the virus is on the inside of the bag, right? So we take all these measures for our kids, yet teen and childhood obesity continues to go up. And we know that in the US, 1 out of every 3 adults in every state in the country would be obese, right? And this is just not a US problem. I think our #1 export now is unhealthy behaviors. The rest of the world is catching up to the good US of buffets here. And globally, we spend $8 trillion on healthcare today in 2023. 70% of those are due to issues that are preventable, due to lifestyle issues. So again, this is a very high cost, right, that every country is facing and getting worse. And so it's interesting, like why? We have more data about obesity than ever before, more detailed food labeling than ever before, more government and childhood initiatives, more wearables, apps, diet solutions, and we can attest more gyms and studios and digital solutions and services than ever before. I mean, there's never been a better time to be a fitness consumer. Cheap, expensive, free, online, in home, anywhere you want, right? So why is this problem continuing to get worse? So we found a solution at the Minnesota State Fair. I'm from Minnesota, that's my home state. Most of you have probably been to, over the course of a year, you go to festivals or fairs in your community. And in the state of Minnesota, we throw one of the largest state fairs in the world. And so for 10 days every August, it is probably the unhealthiest place in the world, right? It is every type of imaginable food is deep fried and put on a stick. And it's, as a Minnesotan, it's one of those things you need to go to. But we went there and we wanted to interview a few people. We do not know how our bodies need to be fed and rested and moved, right? And when you live in this type of society that is increasingly unhealthy, where technology is seducing you to be sedentary, where you can order anything with just a couple clicks of your thumb to show up at your doorstep and feed you high calories, right? It is very difficult to live in an unhealthy world when you are body illiterate, right? We have to change the way we teach body intelligence. Otherwise, we're doomed. If you have no idea what you need to burn or rest, or if you overestimate your burn and underestimate your impact, you're doomed. You're in trouble, right? And so we have low BQ because there are no consequences today for our failure. Think about it. What are the consequences you have as an individual when you're unhealthy? Maybe you have a different quality of life, but there are no direct financial consequences. More importantly, there are no rewards for our success, right? We just don't have a culture. We don't have cultures around the world that truly value personal wellness, right? We don't have financial incentives that are meaningful or put in place. We've just not modernized how we teach personal health, as you can see, right? People knew more about the weather. They knew more about how much petrol they had in their car. They were very specific, but they had no clue about how their body runs, right? So, what is a measurement of optimal health? How do you know when someone says, I'm healthy, right? It's not just the absence of disease. How do you measure that? What's a transformational metric to change this unhealthy tipping point? Right, if you look at all the macro trends in mental health and obesity and type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and those issues related to obesity is the #1 killer globally, right? Should we have a health score just like we do in those other areas? And so we have been working on this. We're collaborating. If you really wrap your head around the complexities and the variables in health, personal health, pre-existing conditions and gender and age and all the things that are happening, right? It's really, really difficult to think of a dynamic personal health score that is fair and objective. It's difficult. And look to the standardization needed with both public and private. For insurers, for the medical industry, for governments, it's going to take some time. This really is a moonshot type of idea, right, to transform societal health, to create a healthy tipping point, to raise generations with higher body intelligence to make better decisions and reward them financially. I know as fitness leaders, right, all of you would probably agree with this. You're like, yes, we need this type of accountability. This makes sense. Give people ownership and knowledge to be the CEO of their own health and reward them for it, right? But it's not going to happen anytime soon, right? And so this may be a metric it's a moonshot. It's realistic, right? We can work on. As an industry, if we want to be preventative, right, we have a say in this. But in the meantime, what can you do, right? Because we're not going to have a personal health score tomorrow. What can you start doing immediately?